What's up, everyone? My name is Allie, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. For this week's episode, we welcomed the members of Prgrphs onto the show. I've been a fan of their widescreen post-rock for several years, creating a two-man, now three-man racket of distortion, guitars, and drums. It was great to talk with the band about their latest EP, Light Refracts, Flickers Back, and dive into its influences, composition, and more. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Dan, Riley, and Chris of Prgrphs on the Ear Coffee Podcast. Here, we just recorded a live session with them.
Available now on YouTube.
But we're here to talk about the rest of the band's goings-on, including the EP they put out towards the end of last year. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let's start with some introductions so we know which voices to associate with which names. Just say what your role is in the band, any other immediately pertinent information you feel like throwing at audiences. Now would be the time to speak your truth.
I'm Chris. I play guitar and keys.
I'm Riley. I play the bass.
And I'm Dan, and I play the drums.
Cool. That is well put and succinct, and I appreciate that. So before I even get into the latest EP, because I was introduced to the band's music, I think, was it the double single you put out in 2019?
Oh, yeah.
2019 to 2020. As like the kid on the picture. I'm suddenly blanking on the title. But when I was looking back ahead of the session today and recording, I was I'd forgotten that the band's been around in some capacity, at least since at least 2010, if not before. And I was kind of taken aback at how long y'all have been doing it in some capacity. I don't know if that's been the same, you three the entire time, if there's been some shifting. That tends to happen with a band that's been around for minimum 14 years, you know.
Yeah. Dan, you want to...
props to the longevity, but
Yeah, appreciate it.
Let's just kind of take us at least through a little bit of what and how got us from there to here, because that many EPs and that many releases and that many years is nothing to shake your fist at.
Yeah, Chris and I met through some mutual friends at the University of Minnesota back in the early 2000s. We both had been in high school rock bands and both had a mutual sharing and liking of lots of the same types of music, and both missed playing in our bands while we were in college. And so, we both graduated in 2005. I went to Augsburg, he went to the U of M. And then in 2008 or so, 2009, Chris and I, I think you remember the exact story of a show, but one of us talked about wanting to play again, and then we both had that mutual agreement, and we found a practice space and started practicing, and we got along with music, and how he played guitar and how I played drums pretty quickly.
Yeah, we saw the Dodos at the Triple Rock. It was probably 2009.
Yep, it was the Dodos.
Yeah.
That both of a time for the band and of a time for the venue, but
Yeah.
Yes,
remembering
absolutely.
some positive memories. That rules.
Yeah. As you were saying, let's remember some guys. The Dodos are... Yeah, it was kind of like a light bulb moment, or we wanted to play music, but we didn't really want to go seek out strangers to play music with. So we were like, oh, if the Dodos can make that much of a racket, just the two of them, then we should try it. So we were a duo, and then we brought in a friend, Bridget, on keys, and then she left. We brought in a bassist. I took on the keys duty, and then we've been through a couple bassists, but Riley's here for good now, I think.
Yep.
I take it there's been a contract.
Yeah. And
In today's day and age.
And Riley just joined us 2 years ago now.
About 2 years ago, yeah.
Okay.
After COVID, so it's been wild. That record, Little Invisible Yesterdays, from, was it technically 2020?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, we did the release show, and then COVID hit. And
Yeah. I remember listening to and writing about that record still in person, in the winter, in one of our like the shared common areas and like outside of like our arts building or something, and just like having that distinct memory of still being one of the last times we were all still allowed to be in that space for a hot minute.
Right.
Um,
Right.
But
But yeah, generally, like over the years, we've been told when Chris and I have played, and even when we had Bridget in the band when she was playing keys, when we didn't have a bassist, we were often told at shows, "Where's the bassist? You need more low ends." Right. We had Bridget and the keys.
In
that Chris
addition
has
to
taken
where's
on.
the singer? That
Yeah,
also,
that's I was going to get to that. But yeah, we've also
any
been,
band without
yeah.
a bassist that is like guitar and drum centric,
Yeah.
someone's gonna be like, "Where's the bassist?"
Yeah.
So yeah, we
Needs
did our
more
best
low end.
in live settings to like play low end keys to like build the foundation of the songs, and we did that. It's a lot easier to do in production than it is live. So yeah, that's why it's been really nice having a bassist to kind of round out the full sound.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has the band's approach to kind of first formatively like creating songs, but then as you've worked over the years honing in on the specific ups and downs and, you know, the craft of each individual piece or track, however you want to label it, has that been born out of kind of like improvisation at the root of it, or what's been that process? And I guess specifically answer that thinking with the latest release in mind, like what has that approach been over time and as of late, with the music we've, if you've seen the live session, presuming release times have coincided, hopefully we were that able to use the calendar, you will have seen and heard, but yeah, I'll open that up to you guys.
Yeah, like we definitely are jamming to find the riffs and stuff, but I think our kind of root interest was a lot of the more composition-based instrumental bands of the post-rock genre, like Explosions in the Sky, Mogwai, and we just really wanted to try to do our take on that kind of thing. So it was always like, okay, we can jam to figure out the hooks and the melodies, but then we want
You have to
put it
start
together.
putting the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, exactly. But like we also,
you dump the puzzle out,
Yeah.
and then you start turning them all upside down. You're
yeah,
like,
which ones go together?
Right.
But I think it was always like our goal, and I don't know how well we've stuck to it, and I don't know how well, Riley, you've been in on this, but like Dan and I ever since was just like we tried to take it as a low stress kind of thing when we did live performances, where it's like if the songs are a little different than they are on the record, that's okay. And actually,
Right.
that's kind of
that's
more
kind of
interesting
the
than
point.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Playing live, I think it's become a bit more succinct with the bassist because the rhythm section is the driving force in like the punchiness and setting the kind of like a relative verse chorus verse feeling to some, especially
Yeah, it really enhances and kind of bolts the structure.
right. So it's a bit more structured, I think, this time around with this EP at least. And like Little Invisible Yesterdays is a 2-song EP, and those were like 8+ minute songs, and that was born out of Chris and I doing tons of ambient work and like experimenting with different sounds and like the swells and all that kind of stuff. And so, but this time around, it feels a bit more structured. There's very succinct and structured methods to the song.
Yeah, that kind of segues me into one of the first things I want to ask about with this EP, which we'll just I did an interview earlier today and I forgot to say the name of the record until like halfway through, and they were like, asterisk. This is the thing we've been talking about this entire time. But it's Light Refracts, Flickers Back, came out last November. It's out there everywhere. We'll do the plugs later. But it's a lot of the songs are some of the shortest, like consistently over the course of over the span of the release. They're the shortest songs the band has put out since some of that really early stuff, like from 2010, and like not everything is like 9 minute, like a 9 minute double single, like with the other release, but like there's at least been like a variety, like okay, there's like 4 minute, 7 minute, 11 minute. There's been lengthier songs and like kind of that variety, but this latest release, it's all I think like all about 5 minutes, with the exception of maybe that like one track in the middle. But like, yeah, what was that a naturally occurring process, or was that like kind of like do you think like a reaction to kind of the expansiveness you've been pursuing within like even single songs with the previous music, just writing and recording longer songs?
I was seeing if Riley had anything.
we're all looking at each other. Who's going to take this one?
I think Dan's pointing at me because he's blaming me.
No.
But I do think,
I mean,
like, it kind of felt like a new band again.
Yeah.
Both having taken the break during COVID and then bringing Riley on. Yeah, it was just kind of like refocus. Okay, what is
That
this version?
natural
gonna
result of kind of the wave of change that was happening already.
Yeah. And I think like we were very purposeful with the 8 and 9 minute double single.
very purposeful.
And so I think, there's probably definitely an amount of like, okay, we did that. Now let's.
Well, I guess another thought I have was, at least with Chris and I, we were in another band called Hey Remember Nostalgia for a few years. And that was
pop band,
sometimes 3 singers, and very indie pop. Like a pop band. And so that was where you had verse, chorus, verse, and some bridges and some intros. And it feels like that playing in that band was this EP feels like a little bit more of that, where the structure
kind of instructive in that kind of mindset when it comes to even like songwriting.
Right. Yeah. We don't have the pop band anymore, so it's more like let's go back to some bouncy stuff.
What's Prgrphs' version of a pop song?
Exactly.
Still 5 minutes, but
Well, so one thing that came out of this EP that we heard from another source or another person who heard it, and I thought this kind of hit it on the head. I don't know. Was like having a post-rock band, instrumental, ambient, experimental band like Prgrphs, but having it in a 5-song EP where all the songs, none of them are longer than 6 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's basically power violence.
Well,
what
I heard was that it's an intro.
That's
It's
our
like
genre.
it could be considered an introduction to post rock for somebody who doesn't have the time or doesn't want to spend the time to like listen to
primer.
a
Yeah, like
12
you
minute
listen to it,
monstrosity.
it certainly is working within like, just as someone who's just as a listener, like very familiar with like a lot of the just familiar kind of paint brushes. I would almost say like the mixture of the colors and what they paint is different, but like you're still using like the same kind of brush. So like it has familiar elements that you're using in your own individual way, your own kind of way with this band versus any other band that is playing like 3-person, very like spacious compositional kind of like the bands you talk about as you named as like an influence. And some of the bands like I heard even just in the songs y'all played just now, it's like I think the second track you played kind of reminded me of L1011, if you all know them, like just where it's a little bit
Big fans,
sparser, and even though it's just I think 2 people, but then this last song was like almost like it had like kind of like a I don't know if I'm misusing the term like krautrock, but like it
Sure. The second half of the song.
it segued into like there's just very steady, especially in the rhythm section, just covers that while you're like the guitar and synth are kind of freaking out a little bit. So like you're still covering a lot of ground within these 5 minutes. It's not like as static as even like a pop song can be, not meaning that even in a negative way, because like sometimes that's the beauty of a pop song. It does a lot with that stasis, whereas y'all are just in, like I said, in the 3 songs we heard, and that's only 3 of the 5. You cover a lot of ground.
For me, Malicious Compliance was like the product of me as a member of Prgrphs for 14 years, wanting to finally put a song out that was super heavy and more of the Caspian, the Russian Circles, those types of post-rock bands that are very heavy. And sure, there's a lot of looping and whatnot, but like,
which I'm also a fan of. But
I
it's taken a while.
I feel like
this
is not maybe tangential, but I feel like I have a good crowd since you're in a post-rock band. But I feel like there's like a weird divergence in people that listen to, I guess, more traditional kind of post-rock, and the people that will actually engage with like the heavier bands, whether it even is just like Caspian or even like some mono noir. Is it mono noir? Like the
or mono,
Japanese, just mono. Yeah, no, that's a different term that a lot of post-rock bands like putting in their songs. But just like the heavier stuff, like there's not a lot of, I feel like, can always be crossed between and sometimes in listeners or in fans, but like it's not every day you see a band that's covering both those kind of fields in the same release. Instead of just kind of, like exploring within one, like really burrowing deep in one side versus the other, versus like kind of showing a breadth.
Yeah.
Typically thinking of these songs for this that you've been playing as of late and obviously played today. But when you're working on and practicing current material and thinking of new material, and just kind of as that process goes, like the process of practicing and writing and getting something down, recording it, releasing it, performing that stuff live, and then how that informs the next stuff that you work on. What has that kind of symbiosis been between live and, I mean, not as much maybe with this record because, there's the gap of COVID where there was no live anything. And that was partially maybe what informed kind of the refocusing of perspective for this latest release. But typically, like, what does that kind of back and forth look like with your live versus your live performances versus how it informs your writing and what you end up recording?
I mean, I think like when we were just starting out, it felt like a lot more of a dialogue. I think, I don't know, for me at least, like I stopped going.
That's a good way to put it.
I stopped performing and going to shows like pretty hardcore for like 3 years. And so when I came back and we decided to reform and bring Riley aboard and all that, it felt a lot more purposeful in terms of like, okay, let's write these songs. Can we put them into a release, and then let's just play the songs out. And so I'm not used to that because I'm more used to like when Dan and I were just a 2-piece, we would go play, write some more, go play, refine the songs, go play. And so I feel like it's like
a circle with like practice, performance, recording, writing, and like all that. You're just kind of moving around and around.
Right. But we have been itching now to get back to writing because we've played these songs so much now, and we're going to continue to play them, and it'll be great. But
even after 2 months of playing songs, after like post release, not even thinking of the time spent playing them beforehand, you start to not get tired of them, but you start to get more excited about the stuff that might be coming ahead.
Right.
You start to kind of, those ideas start to kind of ferment, get going.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, and in years past, we weren't playing out as often. Well, to kind of piggyback what you were saying.
Having kids and
stuff. It was like, that. And like, we didn't want to become stale in the scene. Not that we ever are highly sought after when it comes to playing shows, just to put it lightly. But it has been really fun putting this EP out, and I have a marketing degree and a music business background, like from school, and like have this hobby-esque, or the hobby version. This band is like my hobby version of putting that to practice, kind of, sort of. And so like I'm the one that's reaching out and trying to book. Well, not. I don't mean to put it all on me, but lately I've been doing a lot of that kind of stuff.
So you're better at it.
Your skills have been utilized.
Sure. But yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, like this EP came out, and then I was pushing for it, and got some really good feedback, and then we got some shows landed, and all of a sudden, in like 2 months, 3 months ish, we have like a bunch of shows lined up. We're kind of the middle to the last third of like that push right now, and it's kind of, it feels a little bit like we're in a little like Minneapolis, St. Paul mini tour, if you will.
Yeah.
And
there's like enough days in between that it's like kind of disconcerting, but like there's enough shows that it still feels like a tour. And there's like
a tour for people with full-time jobs.
Yeah. So they're super. It's always fun. I love playing the shows. But at the same time, like Chris said, we're starting to become, we're itching to like write new material. And we have.
So I'm getting that you hate playing live and you want to stop getting booked. Everyone listening, jot that down. No more booking. We're done.
Give
booking.
us a break.
Yeah, let them write. Let them go home. Anyone else have anything else to add?
Well, thanks for having us. This was a lot of fun. We've never done something like this.
Right.
Yeah,
the closest was Radio K a couple times. But
appreciate that. Before I let you go, 2 things. Plug yourselves. Where can people find the band and play? Keep track. What's the easiest and most beneficial way to find and consume the content that we call music in this day and age, to find your music and check out, especially the most recent EP. But there's a back catalog there for people whose interests are piqued. And if there's any local bands that you have been fans of that you just kind of, whether they're ones you've played shows with recently or will be, just who's been treating your ears with some nice tunes lately, if anyone.
Well, we can kind of Riley and I'll
everyone has a
bands.
mic here. We can take our time.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys tackle the bands?
And you're the music business guy.
Sure,
so
yeah.
You'll do the plugs.
So Prgrphs, again, been around since 2010. But we've got
you know how to spell it because you can see it from the episode.
some
as long
people
as
pronounce it
SEO.
Prgrphs.
Yeah,
Prgrphs.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I still say churches, and that's because, even though I love that band, I'm like, how else am I? There's other bands that are just called churches. But
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce the V's. So I say churches.
Yeah, or Always.
All the V's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
You get
on
dirty
all the
looks for that one.
platforms. The best way to listen and consume would be Bandcamp at this point, or coming out to see us at shows. We've got.
Buy something physical because Bandcamp's not gonna last forever either.
I know that's why I
true,
just
that's true.
said that, and I was like, well, that might not be around. But we do have one thing we haven't mentioned is a pre-order of our vinyl. So this EP is coming out on vinyl. Was our first ever time doing it.
I was gonna say, this is the first time that's great. Cool.
So we've had homemade CDs from previous EPs. We have a few CDs or a few albums that are only digital, but this will be our first time doing vinyl. So you can do the pre-order on our Bandcamp or on our Square site, which I think is prgrphs.square.site.
The one where you can buy stuff.
Yeah.
It's probably somewhere in the link in the bio or wherever people put things nowadays.
Yep.
We don't need the HTTPS code right now.
And we're on all the socials. So
Cool.
stream away, buy away, and attend away.
Yeah,
Go
consume
ahead.
is
Yeah.
what we're demanding of you, listener.
We've got we've had a lot of great shows. We finally played with a band that we've been trying to for over a decade, Crash Cuddle. I know we're really excited. Did that show at Cloudland, and those guys are awesome. We also are putting out a remix EP of the songs from this record digitally, and our buddies in
No, that's actually also coming on vinyl too.
our
We
buddies,
just found a lot of money on the ground and
Yeah.
we put it all towards vinyl.
Right.
our buddies in Falcon Arrow are doing a remix on there.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
And
Friends of the pod.
Exactly. And Surrounded by Water is doing a remix, and Dismantlists, aka Lavalier, aka Steve Seal, is doing one too.
Too many names.
I know,
Yeah,
too
yeah.
many. But yeah, those would be the artists that I'd like to plug the most and thank the most, because they've been awesome inspirations as well as just fun to hang out with and play with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna.
Oh, did I steal your
No,
answers?
I was gonna say that's from Crash Cuddle. It was a fun to play with them. It was a great show. Played with Orth not too long.
Oh yeah,
ago, and,
yeah, those guys rock.
Yeah, really cool. And I feel like maybe another show with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, looking forward to that again. So yeah.
Yeah,
I think
so
that-
next
yeah.
thing for us are a couple more shows coming up, and the remix album, we'll be talking about that on socials, and that'll be released
Yeah.
at some point in the next
TBD.
month. Yep.
Yeah, we're not putting a gun in anyone's head saying, give us the date, give us
Right.
the date.
Right.
We see no joy or satisfaction in that. Cool. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday night. I guess it is evening now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, stay tuned for more or less things with Prgrphs, depending on the order in which we release these. But watch the live session if it exists yet. Doesn't, it's coming. But check it out as well. Thank you again, guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
so much again.
You have been listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share so we can stand out against the sea of other music podcasts. You can find information from this podcast and other important links in the show notes of this episode. If you would like to support us, please consider subscribing on Patreon for early access to episodes, live sessions, and other bonus content. You can also subscribe to our Substack for a regular newsletter with reviews, ramblings, and other written content. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.